Pen here. We're all good. Hey, we're on. What's up, man? Everybody, we're here with Santino Corleon tonight. It's super exciting. I've been looking forward to this show for a while now. I was really kind of wanted to tease it and put the info out there, but we kept it under wraps. So it's cool. We'll give it just a minute for people to start popping on here and there. Folks.
Yes, sir.
And if anybody wants to drop a comment, drop a question, please do in the comments. I'll try and keep an eye on those as well. And we'll give it just a minute. So while people are coming on, man, this is like Cinco de Mayo and Taco Tuesday. This is like we're at the pinnacle of like Mexican flair right now. I love it. So cheers. Because
I got this mustache.
Oh well, you never know.
Look a little Mexican.
Look, I because this is a special occasion having you on the show tonight, bro. I dug into my special reserve at the back of the freezer.
Okay.
Got the Don Julio out. And so in honor of Cinco de Mayo, Taco Tuesday, and Santino Corleon, cheers, man, to everybody else out there.
Cheers, salute.
Salute to everybody. Oh, good stuff. Hey, we've got some people joining us, man. So let's kick it off here. First of all, thank you for coming on the show. This has been super exciting. One of the things I love about this program, the way it's panned out, we're getting a lot of awesome and amazing feedback. We've got a cross section of folks from across Cincinnati. We've had political leaders, city council members. We've had business owners, civic leaders, people from across the city. We've also had
right.
bartenders, service industry folks, and now rappers. So like we're covering the gamut
right.
here on the Live the Convo series. Wanting to hear what's going on with everybody out there. So how are you doing, man? How's the family? How are you holding up under the current challenges that we're facing right now?
I'm good, man. We're good. First of all, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here and representing the rapper portion of the people of Cincinnati here. But yeah, everybody's good, man. We're just bunkered down and we're stocked up on food. We're just chilling, only going out when we need to. You know what I'm saying? Masked up, gloved up, sanitizer, you name it. Yeah, everything's good. I like it, honestly. Like I was telling you before, I've been running around so much the last couple of years. This gave me an opportunity to sit down and actually spend time with my family. A lot of time I feel like I'm never going to get back, so I'm trying to enjoy the best of it while I can.
Right. No, that's cool. And so it's probably a good time for you to be creative and get your juices flowing. It's been a little bit hard for me to because you're just out of your usual a little bit. So it just feels just a little off.
Right.
Not quite right.
It is a little off.
I can get the backstory. I want to do that, but are you feeling good right now? You feeling strong? Your flow's good?
Yeah, it is a little off. Maybe the first couple weeks I did nothing at all because I was kind of trying to figure out what this whole thing was. What moves do you make as the head of the household as this thing is developing, you know what I mean? So we were trying to figure out what's going on with the kids and school and stuff like that. So I kind of sat back and spent a lot of time with the family and didn't even really do anything musically. One thing that kind of took me some time to adjust is the fact that I'm not going anywhere around a bunch of people. I'm not in a studio, so I don't have that interaction with people that I normally have. So it's kind of hard to get in that writing zone. And I've noticed I started writing a lot of dark music, and I think it's just because I'm here a lot by myself when I'm writing, like the kids are sleeping, stuff like that. But right. I'm a social person, so that social interacting I've noticed is kind of changed in the tone of my music just a little bit. So I'm anxious to record this new music to see how it comes out.
Well, and that's one of the questions I'm going to ask you later on. Don't let me forget that. I want to, because you've been in this game for a long time, man. You've been grinding out there. People say they're grinding, getting up and going to work in the morning, but from that creative perspective, it's a little bit different. But I feel like you've really hit this trajectory later, and I don't want to get ahead. We'll get to that. But one of the things
right.
I know is the difference because you've been in the game so long. Like Santino Corleon today, 2020 versus 2011, 2012, the musical difference. But let's take it back to that time, man. One of the cool things is we've been
Right.
friends for a long time. But you're a native
Mhm.
Cincinnatian, right? You grew up here, and the
Yep.
family's here and everything like that.
Yep. Yep. I grew up here till about 18, 19 years old. Then I left and I went to New York City. But yeah, I grew up here. Went to Finneytown High School, Finneytown Middle School. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So my family, my both of my parents went to Hughes High School. So yeah, I'm a Cincinnati boy through and through.
Well, that comes out in your music. There's no doubt about that, and we're going to get to my favorite song, my theme song, and my cameo. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'm just going to tease that
Yep.
right now. Um, yeah. So bring us up from that time. I mean, when you're in school, I know you were a multi-sport star at Finneytown High School. Later on, this
Yep.
is a little tidbit. Some folks may not know this. When I ran for city council in 2017, my campaign manager, Eddie Davenport, he says, I have not seen the proof, but he says he was quarterback on the Finneytown football team at some time. So we have that Finneytown connection. But having said that, you're in school and all the options that kids have. And of course, we all want to grow up to be, well, in my case, police officer, movie star, sports star, all of those things. Did you have an interest in music at that point in time? Or how did that come about?
Um, um, I had an interest in music strictly from a fan point of view at that time. I've been a hip hop fan since I was probably 3 years older. My first memories have to do with music and being a fan of hip and remembering the first time hearing rap music. Like what is this? Like you know what I mean? So back then it was just from a fan standpoint. I was a music collector. I would get music that didn't come around for certain people. You know what I mean? So I was always a guy at school, like I got the new this. You know what I'm saying? So that didn't really start for me until after high school, as far as becoming an actual artist. You know what I'm saying? So
So,
high school is just from a fan standpoint.
right. So you had a love for music, as did I growing up. I've always been a hip hop fan. I go way back, like we're talking, and now these are albums, like when they were actual albums, because I'm old school like that. You know,
Yeah,
Grandmaster Flash, Curtis Blow. We're going way back. Old
yeah. See,
LL.
my mom had all that stuff.
Yeah, and I love your mom, by the way. We haven't met your mom.
Yeah, 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 yeah. She loves you too, bro. She definitely is always talking about Derek for
Oh,
sure.
that's awesome. Well, shout out to her. Hope I haven't seen her in a while, so hopefully she's doing good. I see her
She's
on
doing good.
Facebook from time to time. But yeah, walk us through that. Walk us through that time, how you make that transition from just a fan to actually wanting to be an artist. And a lot of people do it, or it's kind of a hobby, or
Mhm.
But at some point you decide I want to make an actual career of this, and people are going to tell you I'm in Cincinnati. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Walk us through that time.
Well, around in, in high school, my plan was always to go. Like you said earlier, I was a two sport. I was a multi sport athlete actually, but baseball and football was primarily my focus. More so baseball. But my dream was to go to a Division II, Division III school to play football, play baseball. You know what I'm saying? And at the age of 16, 17, I didn't really have a plan beyond that. You know what I mean? It was just, oh, I want to go to college to play ball. So I was going to enroll into the Ohio Northern University up north in Ada, Ohio, to play football. I'd already been in contact with the school and the coaches. I think they were going to offer me a partial scholarship at the time. And during this time period, I was having conversations with my mother, and I was, like I said, I was a music fan. So back when you mentioned albums, I'm mentioning the Source magazine, which is a
Mm-hmm.
hip hop publication, which was an actual magazine back in the day.
Yep.
And in the back there was an advertisement for the Institute of Audio Research, which is a audio engineering school in New York City. Now, one day when I was 16 years old, I just showed my mom this picture in the back of a magazine, and it was a studio. So I'd always been attracted to that. Like, oh, I wonder what I was attracted to in a sense of curiosity. Like, I wonder what this is about. Like, I always wanted to be in a studio. What would it be like to be in a studio? That was always my thought process. So upon showing my mom that once at 16, at 18, when I'm kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to do in my life, the football thing that kind of wasn't panning out. So she mentions, why don't you move to New York City and go to that music school? So that kind of like lit this light bulb into me. and then I wound up in Brooklyn probably a year later.
See now, and that's what I love about this program and being able to chat with people like this is we've been friends for a long time, and I never heard that story. I never knew how you initially got to New York, and it was literally back in the day seeing the ad back in the back of a magazine.
You know, Source magazine.
Source magazine. Wow, I never knew that, man.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up in
And I was so young. I'm sorry. I was so young. I still was naive to the point where she mentions, "Why don't you go to New York City?" And I look at her and go, "I can do that." So it's like I still needed my mother's permission in my head. You know what I mean? Like I'm allowed to move to New York City, and you know she says yes, and the rest is kind of history. But I didn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. We got a little bit of overlap on the internet, but yeah. So you're in New York, and when is your first? Because we met a little bit later on, so we can jump up to that time. And when you first hit the scene
Right.
in Cincinnati, and start making moves here and start playing shows, how did that go? Were you making mixtapes? Were you working on the background for a while? Because all of a sudden you just
I was already. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off again.
No, I was just saying you just kind of burst on the scene in Cincinnati, and all of a sudden here's Santino.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of just how you said it. That's kind of how it felt. But I was in New York City. I was, I kind of made a few bad decisions at the time. I'm young, and I just got unleashed into New York City at 18, 19 years old
That
with
can
no
end
one
badly.
to supervise. Yeah, you know what I mean. So my curiosity with life and experimenting with drugs and stuff like that, it hit its peak in New York City at a point, and it wound up having me to come home. You know what I mean? And back in the day, at one point I was homeless, and I didn't even want to call my mom because at the time I felt like coming home meant failure. Like, oh, I couldn't cut it, so I came home, and I thought that would be what people saw in me, like, oh, he tried to go to New York and failed. He's back here now. So I did anything I could to stay in New York City, and sometimes that meant sleeping on the train. And so at one point I kind of break down and come back, but I've developed a drug problem at the time from cocaine. So I'm coming home with this drug problem. I'm trying to deal with the fact that I feel like I failed and didn't, obviously I was making the wrong decisions. So when I come back, I'm working jobs and stuff like that. And then through the stuff I had learned in New York City, I realized I could apply it here, which was a smaller scale as far as competition and things like that. And so I applied everything that I learned in New York City to putting together mixtapes on my own and stuff like this. And this was right around the time the internet starts to pop. So it was just like the perfect storm. And I kind of took advantage of the timing, the internet, and knowing what I knew from what I learned in New York City.
Right. And then, so then at a certain point, you make the decision to come back. And let me just interject right there and say, Cincinnati, we have had, I think internationally, you don't think necessarily of Cincinnati as this home, but for great hip hop artists, DJs, but we have an amazing, and some people know this, I used to have an agency back in the day. We booked DJs and we promoted some bands and different things like that. There's a real subculture here, and obviously we're not New York or Miami or LA,
right,
Chicago, but of kind of that next tier. I think Cincinnati has an amazing community of artists, DJs, and all of this stuff that probably gets overlooked because we're Cincinnati and we're not up here. But we take some of these guys, which ultimately we'll get to that point where you're at, and put them in that scenario, and they can hold their own with anybody. We've got an amazing culture here for that. So
I think that's
you burst on the scene.
No, I was just saying, what did you say the last part about burst on the scene? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you just kind of burst on the scene, and so bring us up to how you kind of blew up in Cincinnati.
Oh yeah. So at the time I was working with an artist from here named Mizike, and he was taking me to a studio down in Bon Hill, and this wound up being a local record label at the time called Natty Boy Records. And the person who was the founder and owner of Natty Boy Records, he had a studio in his basement, and I would go there to record. Now, my buddy who took me there, he wound up getting into some legal trouble and had to go sit down in prison for a few years. Now, before he did that, he takes me to the owner and says, "Hey, this is my guy. Take care of him while I'm gone." So they just opened the doors up to me in their studio and their record label, and I learned how to work inside a studio. I learned how to develop myself as an artist. I learned how to become a songwriter and things like that. And I just started priding myself on things. I really started out battle rapping in New York. Like when I started rapping in New York, it was a battle rap thing. But then I realized, okay, battle rappers, the battle rappers I listen to don't make good songs, and I think you get paid for making good songs. So I transitioned into the songwriter. I wanted to become more of a songwriter. So at Natty Boy Records, I started to learn how to, work studio equipment, write songs, song structure, things like that. So I had a bunch of music sitting there, and then when the internet starts to come about, I'm like, okay, I can use this as a platform to release the music. You know what I mean? And all around the same time, there was a promotion company here, Self Diploma, throwing shows and booking local artists. So, like I said, it was the perfect storm, and I took advantage of the timing. I knew if I could release these mixtapes online, I already know the music's good and better than most people that was in my circles around the time, my competition, if you will. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, and then I'm a performer, so I knew if I could get on the stage, and that was it. You know what I mean? And then you add into videos, doing music videos to all of that. Next thing, next thing you know, I'm on tours with Mac Miller, and I'm opening for MGK, and I'm on stages in front of 10,000, 20,000 people. You know what I mean? It just kind of happened, like, and it just at a point I'm like, I gotta keep doing this because it's working. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And so I think it's about that time when we met because at that point the money's not huge clearly, and so you're working side.
No, no, no.
So
Well, no, that was before. That was before that. Honestly, when I met you at Lifetime Fitness, I hadn't even. I was probably working on my first mixtape, writing it and recording it. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of finishing it up, and then around the time I lost that job is when I'm like, all right, I'm gonna put this little mixtape out, and this is what I'm gonna do, and this is gonna be my thing. I was probably 26 years old at the time. I'm 38 now. That'll give you a time frame.
right. Going back. So we're talking 2008. This is Lifetime Fitness in Mason, just to catch everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I'm living and
Mm-hmm.
working in Mason, and I'm going to the gym at the new Lifetime Fitness, and there's this dude, Santino, working in the cafe, making sandwiches and stuff. I didn't even want a sandwich smoothie, bro. But after we met, I stopped in there, and there was just something about as a guy working in the cafe, and we just struck up conversations and whatnot. And I'm like, there's just something about this guy. I don't know exactly what, but there's just something like a cut above that I just saw something. So I just really enjoyed just getting to know you more and hearing your story. And you're telling me, yeah, I'm gonna be a rap star. I'm a hip hop artist. All of this, and it's like there's probably a million guys working a service industry job like that, and it have these dreams. But I'm like, I see something in him, man. And so we kind of struck up a friendship and connected in that way. And next thing you know, it's happening. Next thing you know, I'm seeing you on Fountain Square with Self Diploma. And 500,000 people on Fountain Square going nuts. And then next thing, and you already mentioned him, I was going to say there was this little known rapper out of Pittsburgh who's maybe that next step ahead, Mac Miller.
Yeah.
And you went on that Self Diploma tour. It was like 4 or 5 cities, I think, around Columbus, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, maybe Dayton, I think it was.
It was Columbus, Dayton, Lexington, and Covington.
Yeah. And it's like, here's this Mac Miller. Like, let me start paying attention to this guy. And I mean, that was just very cool times. And you could just see, and especially in Cincinnati, I think, there was just this time around 2012, 2013, where the city was changing. Our kind of arts, music, culture scenario was changing. And that was just really fun times, man. And then the next thing you know, that at least that I recall, next thing you know, you're at Numbers Fest, right?
Yep.
Numbers Fest in Athens, for anybody that knows what that is, it's thousands, a big music festival, and you're playing shows in front of thousands of people, just going nuts at your live shows, man. What was that like? How did that feel?
That it was at a time where I had told myself, in your head, I'm my worst critic. So in my head at the time, I'd always told myself, if I'm not doing something like worth saying that I made it. By the time I'm 30, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right.
So things started happening for me around 28, 29 years old. So by this point, I'm taking it as the universe telling me, hey, you're on the right track. Because sometimes I would just be in the right place at the right time. That's how I wound up at Seven Fest, where I knew a friend who was a DJ, and I was emceeing parties in between doing shows and stuff like that around the city. And he said he was doing a set at this music festival in Athens. I had never heard of it, so I casually say, "Hey, you should let me MC your set." I was joking. I wasn't expecting him to say, "Yeah, come on." I was just, bullshitting with him, like, "Yo, you should let me MC your set." And he goes, "Yeah, come on, meet me up there." So I show up to Athens, and at noon he starts to play, and around 1 p.m. where it's probably 300 or 400 kids in the field. By no, excuse me. By noon is probably 300 or 400 kids. By 1 p.m. it's probably 10,000 kids in this field, and I wound up hosting the entire festival. And the legend goes, Dom, who is the founder of the festival, didn't know who I was. No one knew who I was but my friend. And they were like, "Who is this dude? He's killing it. Let him keep going." So it just turned into this thing. You know what I mean? And I met Mike Martin there, and we wound up doing a lot of work throughout the city. And that Seven Fest kind of sparked it off. So after that, I did 7, 8, 9, 9, 10, and 11, and maybe 12. I can't remember. So with all that going on, the shows with Self Diploma, a relationship with Mac Miller, all of this just simultaneously happened at one time, all while dropping music videos online. It was just a part. Like I tell people all the time, that may never happen in this city again. That was a time in history. Like it was like you said, man, it was history that happened in that time. And I think a lot of people kind of went on and did better things and moved on to bigger platforms. And then some of us just, some people didn't. They just went and got jobs and went regular ways. But that's also cool too. But it definitely did grow a lot of artists out of the city of Cincinnati.
Yeah, man, that was just a fun time, and sometimes when stuff like that's going on, you don't realize
It was.
that moment what's happening, but it was definitely we were just popping off on the scene back then. So let me check out the comments a couple real quick. We've got some people stopping by. First of all, Joey Talmadge, Hoodie Time.
Okay.
Another one of your fellow.
Oh yeah, he's away out in New Zealand.
Hoodie Time, another one of your fellow artists, has kind of struck it big, and he's a Kiwi now in New Zealand, where it's actually tomorrow morning. There it's the next day, so he's joining us online, which is super cool. Jan Brown Checo stopped by. Say,
wow,
yeah, another mutual friend of ours.
Checo, I can't call her Jan Brown. She's Miss Checo to me, and I grew up with her daughter in school, and Miss Checo was the first professional artist that I probably ever knew, and would invite me into her home as a child, and always treated me well, always treated me like a kid who was an artist, because I was the wild hyper kid growing in school, and she never looked at me as the troublemaker. She always treated me as this kid who, I don't know, she probably saw something in me before I saw it, and I always appreciate her for that, and I always show love for that. So thank you, Miss Checo.
That's awesome. Well, she's here and sends her love. So that's super cool. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about you is that, there's not really whatever we think a prototypical rapper might be. Man, you've got friends across the gamut, the cross section of all kinds of folks, and your music has been that way.
Yeah.
So let me fast forward a little bit and talk about that, because a certain somebody made a cameo in one of your videos. So let's fast forward up
to that
time, which is now my theme song for my city. And a lot of what you have done has actually been for your city, Cincinnati. I don't think no matter what happens, where you go, you will ever leave that behind. And so tell us about that time and that video and the music that you were making at that time, and specifically about For My City. And anybody that's watching right now, please go on YouTube, For My City, Santino Corleon. Check it out. Check the video. You might see a cameo if you can catch me in there. Tell us about that time and your thoughts behind that song in particular, because that song means a lot to me.
Right. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And I've always been humbled and thankful that you were a part of that process and in that video. That video got a lot of love and attention around the city as well. I think that was the first video ever as far as hip hop artist goes in this city who you I've used, that was the first one to ever use a drone shot. So that video is like really important to me. You know what I'm saying? And like, because if you can kind of look back in the history of when drones were kind of made available for people, you know, the average consumer to use, like the person Joe Benford who directed that video was probably the first person in the city with a drone. So we got to do a drone shot of the city. But anyways, my thought process with that was at the time I was actually living in Los Angeles when I wrote that song. And I was doing a project that was titled Cincinnati. And it was basically kind of an homage to the city because I was leaving again. Like I'd already left once for New York. And then this time I'm leaving again for LA. So I was kind of, my manager at the time, who's now an executive at the label I'm signed at, he was just like, yo, kind of make this your goodbye letter to the city. So a lot of those records just kind of have to do with me, my experiences here and the levels that I climbed in order to make it to where I could leave for Los Angeles. So that was just kind of like, you know, a thank you to the city.
Well, everybody should go check that video out. It's amazing. It's actually very touching, the story, and there's a storyline to it, and that's one of the things that I really loved about the video and actually playing a part in making the video, because there was a message in there of, you know, coming together, that we have different types of folks,
Right.
we have different races. There's been a history of you know, maybe combativeness. I don't know if that's the right word, but at the end of the day, we all come together because we are united as one in Cincinnati, and
Right.
I just think it's an amazing message. One of the things I appreciate, and you know, you've got your typical rap videos, Santino Corleon from back in the day, you know, girls and and cars and all of that. But the other thing is, you've made music that, you know, just is this very positive and uplifting message, uniting us all, and especially with what's going on today. I just think it's a fabulous message, especially to represent your city, Cincinnati.
Right. Thank you. If I can remember correctly, I think the whole Sam Du Bois trial was going on at the
Right.
time, and that was my consensus for the video. Like we kind of had this division going on with, you know, conservatives and liberals as far as what punishment should be dealt out for the officer in the whole incident and everything. And I just kind of see, like, my mom has always told me music is a universal language of the world, whether that be based off of people speaking different languages. But sometimes, just like you said with my audience ranges from little kids to, you know, your most unsavory characters you can think of. You know what I'm saying? But
Such as
it's just
myself. I
people
mean, I'm a big fan.
that are
I'm a
coming.
little unsavory.
Yeah, to a politician. Yeah, you're still unsavory. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, I could have little kid fans to politician fans to, you know, people that be in the street a lot. You know what I'm saying? But it's just people who I've come in contact with and the people that have inspired me over the years. You know what I'm saying? So that's why my music, for lack of a better term, can be all over the place sometimes, but it works for somebody like me, and I think it comes off genuine because it is genuine. It's who I am. I
Right.
never pretend to be something I'm not. You know what I mean? So I could have those videos where you have girls, you have drinking, you have all that stuff because I've been in those situations. I've lived in those situations. You know what I mean? But I also know that sometimes music can bring us all together. So I try to be positive and also try to have a message at the end of the day in my art. You know what I'm saying?
No, and that's 100% the case. And I actually had forgotten that was a time of Sam DuBose, and honestly, that's why I was
Yeah.
um, uh, um, just very appreciative that you invited me to be in the video, because I've always felt for myself in the role that I have. You know, I'm retired now in 2016, but after 26 years in law enforcement, after having grown up on the east side of Cleveland as one of the only white kids in Warrensville in my neighborhood, and then with my career and especially everything that's gone on in the last, you know, 5 or 10 years in terms of the African American community and law enforcement, of trying to, you know, to the degree that I can, help to be a bridge among people and bring folks together and see at the end of the day we're all human beings. And so I love the message of that song. I use it in my Instagram stories when I'm around Cincinnati. And let me just give you a little teaser. We're going to hear more of that song because I have adopted that as my theme song. And so I appreciate that a lot. Now, let me just segue from that little teaser into
Okay.
you're talking about making music for everybody. And speaking of everybody,
Hmm.
I get a call one day, and it's Santino calling me, and I'm like, "Wow, I haven't talked to him in a while. Why is Santino calling me?" And I answer the phone, and he's like, "Bro, I'm gonna be a dad," and I'm like, "What?" You're like, "What am I gonna? I'm a rapper and I'm gonna be a dad. What am I gonna do?"
Yeah.
And so now you're
It was a scary time.
scary times, but yet now, like, you're a family man. You're at home. You're with the kid. You're with your family. You're with a little Onyx, and he makes a lot of appearances in your social media and stuff like that. Tell me about how that works with
Yeah.
this. On the one hand, you're in the entertainment field and everything that goes with that, but you're super family oriented now. I mean, that was scary times for you. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was just scary time in the sense that I didn't think I was ready for it. You know what I mean? I didn't plan for a child. I didn't. That was never in my long term plan. Like I had convinced myself I wasn't going to have any kids, and I was just gonna pursue this career, without any children or without a family, and that's just what it was. So when my girlfriend at the time tells me she's pregnant, I kind of freak out because I'm a person. If I do something, I want to do it 100%, and if I'm going to do music, I'm going to do it 100%. If
Right.
I'm going to be a father, I'm going to do it 100%. So how can I be I gotta put 100% into being a father. Number one, there's no other option in that equation but to be a father and to be present in my child's life. So how can I do that 100% and then still have this music career? So for a while, I didn't do anything. I took a break for a year and a half. I almost quit. I started working a real job because I figured, that's what I'm supposed to do. I hadn't worked a real job because I was doing this. I was traveling the country nonstop. So it's like you can't have a job. I didn't have an apartment because why pay rent in an apartment when I'm never in that city? I'm only in the city here and there.
Right.
So it was just always this couch hopping life. I might be in New York one week. I might be in LA one week. I might stay in New York for 6 months. I might come to Cincy for a couple months. So at the time when she gets pregnant, I settle down, I get a job, we get a place together. And this for the first time in my life, I got my own place. I become, so I'm trying to figure out how to make sure I'm going to be a good dad. You know what I'm saying? So I took a break from music for about a year and a half. But then me trying to pretend that I'm happy started my wife started noticing. She wasn't my wife at the time. So she started noticing, like, you're a little different. Like, you're not as happy as you were and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I'm not. For the first time in my life, I'm trying to learn how to live without doing music. You know what I mean? Like, because I've done this forever. I don't. It's a lifestyle to me. So to tell me I'm not doing it anymore, I had to learn how to live without that. So I started getting depressed and stuff like that. So one day she goes, "You should probably just quit that job and we'll figure it out." And then I had a buddy call me from Columbus, and he was noticing things like I wasn't posting as much online. I wasn't dropping music anymore. And he says, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Man, I'm just kind of like trying to figure out how to do, this whole life and fatherhood thing without doing music anymore. I guess this thing is over for me." And he's like, it seemed like you're only happy when you're doing that stuff. So I'm telling I got a whole album sitting in my computer that I was working on before this, and it's already mixed and mastered, ready to go. And he was like, "Well, why didn't you release it?" And I told him it was because of money. And then I was like, "I don't know if I got the extra money for it now. I'm paying bills. I got a kid. You know what I mean? I got two other kids that I take care of in this relationship." So he goes, "How much is it to put out an album?" And mind you, he doesn't know anything about music, production, anything. So I wound up crunching the numbers, and I give him a figure, and he goes, "Literally, that's nothing. I'm going to send it to you right now."
Wow.
So he sends me the money to put out this project, and this is February or late January of 2018. We set the project release date for March 1st. 3 weeks later, I was back on tour, and I was touring with Talib Kweli. So it just went, and ever since then, it's been back off and running. So I just had to learn how to balance the two.
yeah, no, that's an amazing story, and you know, shout out to him for supporting you like that. I mean, that's amazing. How many people would do that?
Yep.
You know, and just Venmo the money or whatever it was, Cash App, and next thing you know, you're with Tyler.
We've been friends since we were 9 years old. I'm sorry to cut you off. I meant to add we've been friends we have been friends since we were 9 years old, and now we're business partners because of that whole interaction.
That's awesome. That's an amazing story. So, so that album drops. Now you're building your social media presence, and I follow you know on Instagram at Santino Corleon. By the way, let's talk about that. I got to mention that just for a minute. Santino Corleon. So I know your government name, but Santino is your first name. So how did that come about? Tell us about that.
Well, back in the day, I lived in Staten Island, and I had a mentor named Ant. And Ant kind of told me a long time ago, this is in the early 2000s, so this is a lot of gangster rap going on. So this dude, Ant, who was my mentor, was like, yo, you're going to be a rapper. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not a gangster. Like, I can't be no rapper. Like, he's from Staten Island, so I'm telling him, like, if you knew where I'm from, you know I can't be a gangster. I'm from Finneytown, Ohio. Like listen to the name. It don't even sound gangster. Like, so he's like, nah, you're gonna be a rapper and you're gonna have like that college crowd. Like everything that I do now, he called it. Like, so he was I was like, so what would my rap name be? And he goes, you're gonna be Santino Corleon from the movie. You know what I'm saying? Because my name is Santino Corleon. My name is Santino, which is from the movie The Godfather, the Sonny James Caan character, who they call Sonny in the movie, but his name is Santino. So I was like, that I definitely can't use that name because it's a mobster's name, you know? So they kind of turned into that really. Like I just like, yo, I'm just gonna run with this. But going back to my mother, she never liked the Corleone because she says it's got bad connotation to it. But I'm like, Mom, you named me after a mobster. So
It's all her fault.
so what you didn't think that then? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's all her fault. So now, now that I'm signed though through my label, I actually dropped the Corleone, but I only dropped the Corleone for that music I released with them. When I release my own music, the Corleone is still there.
Oh, got you. So now there's Santino
Marketing.
and Santino Corleone.
Yep, two entities.
Got you. Well, it's easy to find your stuff on all the iTunes and all the rest of the platforms. Santino Corleone, you come right up. So everybody go check that.
Yep.
Go check that out ASAP. Hey, just looking at the comments real quick. Jordan Stroof is here. Mike Tome says that's my boy. So all your fans dropping by and check.
Toombs, that's my engineer. Toombs is my brother and engineer. He records all my music at True Sound Studio in Cincinnati.
Well, there you go. Perfect. Andrew Prentovic stopping by. Finneytown, baby. So we got a lot of Finneytown folks on here right now. So
oh yeah, I went to school with Andrew.
It's funny, you know, Cincinnati's like a small big town or a big small town. So many people connected in so many ways. But let's bring it up to the current day, man. Like, so you know, first of all, I think I'm pretty sure you're still here in Cincinnati for the moment, but I'm hearing some rumblings and rumors about you maybe leaving us. Hopefully you don't forget about us. But, you know, it's been a big deal. You getting signed to the label and then being the GOAT that you are, you know, the song GOAT and then ending up on Jeopardy, greatest of all time as the theme song, man, is just like some next level stuff. So tell us how that came about, where we're at.
Thank you. Well, I've always worked with my manager at the time. His name is Andre Hibbert. He was the road manager to an artist named Out of Sight, who's from New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Out of Sight had a big record back in the day called Tonight's the Night. If you look that one up, I'm sure you've heard it. I'm sure it's in any movie commercial, like it's in a lot of things. So at the time I was touring with Out of Sight and just working with him off and on. About a year ago, Andre calls me and he says, Out of Sight has something for you, but I'm not gonna tell you. I'm gonna let him tell you. So I'm like, what is that? Like, first of all, Dre and all, if there was anything to tell me, Dre was always the one to tell me, look, you're getting a special appearance.
Hold on, I gotta interrupt this. She don't care about this. Is everybody that know? Maybe some of your fans on here don't know her, but mine do. This is Uzi hashtag City Kitty, straight off the streets of Price Hill. If she wants to make an appearance, she's going to make an appearance, rock star, rapper or not. So it's a little cameo.
It's her house. I'm just visiting.
You're just visiting, but anyway, so Josie hashtag City Kitty. So yeah, get us caught up.
Yeah, where were we at? Oh yeah, so Dre, he calls me, he says Out of Sight's got something for you, but I'm gonna let him tell it. So in my mind, I'm kind of confused because Dre always told me anything that was supposed to tell me. Then if it had to do with Out of Sight, then I would just link up with Out of Sight, and it was what it was. So a week later, Out of Sight calls me, he says, I'm starting a record label with Cook Classics, who's a producer, who's produced all of Out of Sight's hits, basically. He's produced for Beyonce, Kevin Gates. He's the co-writer of the song. Oh man, I would draw a blank right now. Okay. Oh, she's sweet but a psycho. She's nothing like she's mine.
Josie, what is it?
She's kind of crazy. Josie knows. No, so
if somebody knows the song, drop it in the comments. I'll see it.
Yeah, not Hey Look Ma, I Made It. It's the same group, but they got two songs out. Hey Look Ma, I Made It, and then they have another song out that Cook co-wrote that song, and it was #1 on the Billboard. So the guy Cook I'm signed with had #1s on the Billboard. Placements out the wazoo. Out of Sight is also the other founder of the label. They call me and they want to sign me as a artist and writer to write records for TV, film, and commercials. So they send me the GOAT record, which already had the hook on it, and they're like, hey, we want you to write some verses to this and see how it turns out. I do it at True Sound with Mike Toombs. See, I dropped his name right there. That's product placement.
Mike Toombs.
So I dropped the verses, and they send it back, and they're like, look, we want to sign you to this label, and we think we can do some things with this record. And I think 6 months later, it wound up on a Jeopardy TV promo ad.
That's amazing.
And now I'm signed with 83 Sound. So shout out 83 Sound. Shout out Cook. Shout out Dre. Shout out of Sight. Shout out Chelsea Perkins. Shout out Dylan Reese. Shout out the whole team.
That's amazing stuff. Oh, Lindsay Kraling, our mutual friend, stops by and says, "Sweet but Psycho." Is that the name of it? Sweet but Psycho.
Yeah, Sweet but Psycho.
Yeah,
Cook
caught it.
Cook co-wrote that one, and then the other, it's not Hey Look Ma, I Made It, but they got another song, and I can't think of it right now. If my wife was in the other room, she would be able to tell me. But she's upstairs keeping the kids occupied because they probably would have interrupted our interview here. But
cats, kids, we're live, so it's all good.
Yeah, chill out, kids. Dad's doing rapper stuff. So I'm working with a good bunch of people right now out in Los Angeles, and they've set me up in situations that I've never been set up for in my life, especially financially. And it's because of that, it's allowed me and causing me to have to move my entire family to Los Angeles. So before the pandemic, our plan was to leave in June, but right now we're looking at July. So we're just taking it day by day.
So you plan on moving to LA and kind of taking it to the next phase. And one of the things that I noticed, I just wanted to mention real quick, you put out on your social media a couple weeks ago to talk about, because we have so many artists out there, but the hard part is making that jump from being an artist, being creative, just doing it kind of as a hobby perhaps, and then some percent end up hitting it big. But what you were saying was, don't necessarily worry about a hit record. There are so many opportunities, whether it be, TV shows or movies or soundtracks or other things. There's ways to get paid other than that hit record that you're hearing on the radio. And then that,
right.
And you can continue to produce, and, then maybe you do take that other step to the radio and such, which you have been on the radio, but in terms of just like a big blockbuster.
Right. Yeah. I know, even out of sight. I can mention his name to people, and it may not register to some people. Like, who is that? But then you go look him up, and he's records on Spider-Man, the animated movie, with videos with millions of views, and he's obviously taking care of his family financially, and he's well off to the point that this is what he does as a profession. And I learned over the years that it's not. You don't have to be that guy that's in the main spotlight like a Drake, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? The music industry is a $200 billion a year industry. I'll take a portion of it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
You need a
so
little
you
slice.
get, you know what I'm saying? Give me a little portion of it. I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? As long as I can take care of my family, pay my bills, and do this what I love, and not have to work for anyone else, I'm fine with that. I don't need the fame part. I learned through knowing people like Mac Miller what the fame can do to you. God bless his soul. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, ultimately when we get into this is yeah, that's what we want. We want the fame, we want the fast cars, we want the money, we want all of that. But you know, you grow up. I'm 38 years old. Now this is a profession, and now I'm set up to where I can financially take care of my family and for the rest of my life and then some after that. You know what I'm saying? So I just was lucky to be working with some people that were in a position to put me in a position. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it was a relationship that was developed over a 10-year period. So it was nothing was handed to me, nothing was given to me. You know, it was they just said, "Hey, we got this opportunity, and it's up to you what you want to do with it." You know what I mean? And up so far so good.
Right. And that, that's one of the things that I appreciate about you as we kind of walk through this whole, this story, this biography, really, of your life up to this point. There were multiple opportunities, and I know anybody that's in the limelight or the public eye, sometimes the more haters that you get and that kind of stuff, it tells you you're actually achieving, because if you weren't, nobody would care, right? So,
It really does.
one of the things that I appreciate about you is, there were multiple opportunities for you to quit. As a matter of fact, I remember conversations,
Hmm.
between us where we're having that discussion, and you're kind of thinking through, is this really the thing for me? But you persevered through that. I think your family and your wife has been a huge part of that and supporting you through this. To the
That
fact that you're in your late 30s and it's kind of taking it to the next level and achieving. I mean, that's really, it's just really cool and powerful stuff. I think it says about a person that you've overcome these different things, these challenges, to achieve, and now, like, in the later stages of what you would think of a music career, taking it to this level.
right. Yeah, that's another thing that I love about this because that was always one of the main criticisms, if you will, I got. Like, well, you're in your 30s trying to be a rapper, like as if that there was some law saying that you can't do this in your 30s, you know. And being around, I think that's a small town mentality, and not to knock anything around here, but I think once you be around people from New York City and LA who are doing this on a bigger scale, and they don't look at you as, oh, you're 30 trying to do this. It never even comes up in the conversation. It teaches you, oh, that doesn't even matter. You know what I'm saying? So I had to get to the point where I just kind of blocked all that one out. And at this point now, to be a rapper who got signed at 38 years old, that's a feat in itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, not too many people get signed at my age, but in the day and age we live with the internet, I think that kind of killed that whole you got to be this kind of age. And look at Jay-Z. Like, you say the people say that rap's a young man's game. Jay-Z's 50 years old, still dropping material and still relevant. You know what I mean? So you can't tell me all the rappers that make over $100 million are over 30 years old. So how is this a young man's game? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of rappers that make the most, the top tier rappers that make the top tier bread, they're all over 30. You know what I'm saying? So I never, that age thing never really bothered me. I think it's kind of sad when people don't pursue their dreams or pursue what they want to do in life based upon that they think they may be too old. You know what I mean? I think that's the lie that they teach us, society teaches us. And if anything, I think I want to be the one that people can look at and be like, well, that age shit ain't true. Look at him. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, and the other thing I think that it does, which I think we're seeing here in this conversation, is just life experience, maturity, handling the success, because you see, Somebody, especially if they strike it big through whatever, whether it's in the music industry or sports or business, whatever it may be, you get that at a young age, and it's hard to manage all of that. And you see just people getting carried away, and a lot
It is.
of time it just kind of burns out and ends badly. So so sometimes it's like a
It is.
tortoise wins the race. You're taking it slow and steady, and you win at the end.
Yeah, see, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm not perfect, and I fell victim to the local attention and letting it negatively affect me. I've fell victim to letting the naysayers negatively affect me at times. But if it's one thing I was always taught through my management is put it in your music. So I deal with it in my music. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it has allowed me to grow as a person and as a man. You know what I'm saying? Music taught me how to be a man because I could always go back and listen and know where I was at mentally at a point in my life and see the growth. You know what I'm saying? So it's just taught me like I don't know. It's just thinking of me now. Like it's my lifestyle. It's what I live and breathe. I don't know how to do anything else. I was telling my wife recently. I don't even remember a time where I wasn't looked at as Santino Corleon. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't even remember a time where I was Santino Lambert. Like obviously I know I'm Santino Lambert, but I can't remember where people didn't see me as an artist. I can't even remember that time of my life anymore. Like it's weird because I've been doing this so long. You know what I'm saying? But I love it. It's who I am. It's what I'm supposed to do. I think and with the age thing, I think that it's a thin line with that because I feel like you have to listen to the universe, and the universe will tell you if you're supposed to be doing this or not. I don't think that like okay, you're a retired police officer. I wouldn't recommend you wake up tomorrow and say you're going to become a rapper. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't stop you if that's
Come
what you
on,
want
man!
to
I
do.
want to
So
follow my
be it.
dreams, man. Come on, man.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and say I'm gonna become a police officer. It just, you know what I'm saying? It's just some things that don't naturally make sense. But
Yeah,
I've been
the
doing this so
universe
long,
says no to me being
I've
a
seen.
rapper, and the universe says no to you being a cop. So we gotta stay in our lane on that.
Yeah, you got to stay in your lane. You know what I'm saying? So I would never discourage anyone from their dreams. But like I said, I didn't wake up at 30 years old and become a rapper. I was doing this in my teenage years and I was doing this with an intensity and at a level to where I'm like, this is what I'm doing. It's all or nothing. And I just stuck to my guns. You know what I'm saying? So it's just now to the point where it's starting to work for me financially. I mean, I bought a car off of the Jeopardy thing. You know what I mean? That was the first time in my career where I could say, y'all bought something pretty big off of my music. You know what I mean? And it's a powerful thing. It's vindication of all those years where I was sleeping on the train that I was doing the right thing. You know what I'm saying? And all the things that I went through just to get to this point, it was just vindication, and it's only going up from here. So I couldn't be more happier and more in a better position.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the family, and I'm excited to see what comes next.
Thank you.
So, look, at this
Thank you.
point, let me say this. With this COVID-19 coronavirus, we're kind of all in the mix of that. We don't know exactly. People are anxious. We've been locked down for a while. People trying to break out and all of that. We don't know when we can gather next. But I will say this. I'm never going to be a rapper, but I do love going to a Santino Corleon show. The last one of your
You bet.
shows I was at was you were over. You should have been the headliner, but you were opening for Riff Raff, Jody High Roller. No offense to Mr. High Roller, but that was a giant snooze fest. Everybody left after you came on, and just blew the place up. If you've never been to a Santino Corleon live show, listen to his music, download all the albums on iTunes, all of that stuff. But seeing this cat live, you're like, it's some next level stuff, man. And by the way, Mike Martin stopped by. Mike, we talked about you earlier. You got to
Mikey.
you got to go watch it. You got name dropped about 17,000 times.
Man, Mikey's my boy, man. Mikey, Mikey and I don't talk much anymore, but if he's still here, I want to thank Mike for all he did for me over the years. Like we made some pretty cool times around here. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think Mike get a lot of the credit he deserved for that too. So thank you, Mike. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's awesome. So Man, I appreciate this time. We'll go ahead and wrap it up now, but everybody get on. Follow at Santino Corleon, especially Instagram. You're super active. I love to see you interacting with fans, especially the kids when they message you. You get back to them. People love that stuff. And we're super excited. I
Thank
can't
you.
wait until all this is passed and we can see what not only what comes next, but the next Santino show. Hopefully I can get on my phone and make a text. Maybe they'll still let me in the back door. I don't know.
There you go. You good? You family, baby.
I got to put a couple requests if you can add them to your rider when you get, because you're at that level now for green room supply.
Nah, you family, man. You're good. You got my number.
I appreciate that, bro. And a big shout out to you. Everybody go check it out. My favorite Santino Corleon song. There's probably going to be more in the future, but For My City, check it out. YouTube, download it on iTunes. Follow him. And for me, at Derek Ballman, Twitter, Instagram, and this will actually, all of my videos that we're doing for the show, which has been a great series, we're putting on YouTube as well. So if you missed parts, you want to go back and check it out. Derek Ballman on YouTube. You can find me there. Tino, brother, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Cincinnati, love you.
Thank you, man.
Always.
Love you, man.
And Santino loves Cincinnati. Cincinnati loves Tino too as well. So have a great night, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Love you guys. Bye.